Today, we're opening up a file that, I'll be honest with you, usually makes people want to take a nap.
Right.
We are looking at a strategic analysis report for Social Security and Medicare, and this is specifically focused on the landscape for 2025. And I know bureaucracy isn't usually the most thrilling genre, but stick with me here.
Yeah, it doesn't really sound like a page turner, does it?
Yeah.
But this one is actually different.
It really is, because when I first started reading through this, I expected the usual dry list of dates and percentages, just the standard government bulletin stuff.
The fine print.
Exactly. But the introduction alone, it actually stopped me in my tracks, because it describes the Social Security system not just as a safety net, which is how we always talk about it in the media,
Right.
but it frames it as the result of 40 years of labor.
And that framing really changes everything, doesn't it? Because it stops being a government handout or an entitlement program.
Yeah.
And it starts being treated as an asset that you have actively built. It's a return on your investment.
Exactly. It validates all that hard work. But then, right after that validation, the report pivots to a pretty stark warning. It explicitly calls the system intentionally confusing.
Wow.
Right. And that is essentially the core premise of our deep dive today. We aren't just reading the news to you. We're trying to decode a system that is arguably designed to trip you up.
And that trip up, I mean, it isn't just annoying. In 2025, it's expensive.
Very.
The complexity has reached a point where if you don't understand the new rules, you are actively losing money.
Yeah.
You're leaving chips on the table that you spent 4 decades earning. And frankly, the government isn't going to call you up and tell you that you missed a spot.
No, they definitely are not. So our mission today is pretty clear. We need to take this dense administrative noise, and there is a lot of it in this report, and turn it into a strategic roadmap. We want to move you from passively waiting for a check to hit the bank to actually controlling the flow of your retirement income.
Because passive acceptance is really dangerous this year. We're going to see that a lack of transparency can turn what looks like a raise into a financial deficit.
Yeah.
We basically need to audit your benefits.
And we have some genuine surprises in here. We're going to cover why your money might simply not be there when you check your account in March.
Right.
We're going to break down the math on why the cost of living adjustment might actually feel like a pay cut. And we'll talk about a massive structural change to pharmaceutical costs that kills off a mechanism that has haunted seniors for a really long time.
The death of the donut hole.
Yes.
It's a massive deal. It's probably the biggest structural change in a decade.
Huge. But let's start with something immediate, the calendar.
Okay.
The report has a section called Decoding the Calendar, and it highlights a specific event in March 2025 that is going to cause a lot of panic if you aren't ready for it.
Yeah, this is a classic example of administrative quirks causing real-world stress. It's about the direct deposit schedule. If you were used to a certain rhythm, money hits the account on the first, bills get paid on the second.
Clockwork.
Right. But March is going to break that rhythm.
Because the dates don't align.
Right. Usually, supplemental security income, or SSI, arrives on the first of the month. That's the golden rule. But looking ahead to March 2025, the FOIA actually falls on a weekend.
And the government banks aren't processing payments on a Saturday or Sunday.
Precisely. So the disbursement schedule shifts. The government pays early to avoid being late. But the report highlights a very specific date to watch, which is Friday, March 7th.
Wait, walk me through that. If the first is a weekend and they pay early, shouldn't it be late February? Why is March 7th blinking red in the report?
It's blinking red because of the gap. Yes, the SSI payment comes early, likely February 28th. But for regular retirement benefits, the schedule relies on entirely different rules. So March 7th becomes this critical milestone for specific beneficiaries who might be expecting funds earlier based on previous patterns.
Ah.
It creates a cash flow drought week that people just aren't planning for.
Right.
But the bigger source of panic, and this is where the phones at the SSA usually blow up, is from what we call
So you check your bank account on March 3rd, you see the SSI money. But the retirement money, which is the bigger chunk for many people, is just missing.
And you panic. You think, they forgot half my check. Did I fill out a form wrong? Is my identity stolen? Did they cut my benefits?
But they didn't. It's just a scheduling quirk.
No, it's just the system operating on 2 different timelines simultaneously. It prevents that missing money heart attack if you know ahead of time that the check is just split, not lost.
Okay, so let's map out that second timeline, the Wednesday rule.
Yes.
I feel like this is something people nod along to but then completely forget until they are staring at an empty account. How does the report break down the schedule for regular retirement SSDI, and survivor benefits.
It's actually surprisingly logical, which is rare for this report. It is entirely based on your birthday. It has absolutely nothing to do with when you retired or how much you make.
So break it down for us. If I'm born at the start of the month.
If you were born in the first third of the month, so between the 1st and the 10th, your payment hits on the second Wednesday. For March 2025, that is March 12th.
Okay, early birthdays get the second Wednesday.
Right. Now, if you were born between the 11th and the 20th, you are in the middle group. You get paid on the third Wednesday, which is March 19th. And for those born between the 21st and the 31st, you are waiting all the way until the fourth Wednesday, March 26th.
Wow. So if you were born on the 25th and you're relying on that check to pay a mortgage due on the 1st,
Yeah.
you are waiting a really long time.
You are practically a month behind the calendar start. And knowing this is crucial for cash flow management, it prevents you from spending 3 hours on hold with the SSA wondering where your money is. It isn't lost, it is just calendared.
That is a crucial distinction. It's about managing anxiety just as much as managing money. Now let's move to the money itself. Everyone loves to see the headline about the COLA, the cost of living adjustment. For 2025, the number is 2.5%.
Right. And I can practically hear the collective sigh of disappointment from everyone listening right now.
Well, yeah. Compared to 2023, when we saw that massive 8.7% jump, 2.5% feels negligible. It feels like loose change.
It is significantly smaller. But the report makes a very strong, almost philosophical point here. We have to stop viewing CLA as a raise. That is a myth we tell ourselves.
It certainly feels like a raise when the number goes up.
But it is not designed to improve your standard of living. CLA is a mathematical attempt, and often a pretty flawed one, to keep your purchasing power from drowning. It's maintenance, not a bonus. It's treading water. And the report warns that in 2025, for many people, we are looking at a net zero reality.
Net zero. That sounds worse than just a small raise. That sounds like stagnation. How does a 2.5% increase result in $0 extra in my pocket?
Because the government gives with one hand and takes with the other, specifically through Medicare Part B.
The premiums are deducted automatically, right?
Yeah, before the money even hits your bank. The report details that the Medicare Part B premium is rising to roughly $185 per month. That is an increase of about $10.30 from the previous year.
Okay, $10 doesn't sound like a fortune in isolation.
It isn't in a vacuum. But apply the math. If you're the COLA increase, that 2.5% translates to, say, a $40 increase in your check, and Medicare immediately takes back $10.30.
Ouch.
You've lost 25% of your raise instantly. And that is before you buy a single carton of eggs or a gallon of gas, which have also gone up in price.
So for a significant number of retirees, that hike, combined with general inflation, effectively swallows the benefit.
Completely. For many, the discretionary income, the money left over for fun or emergencies, remains flat. It essentially evaporates before you can even spend it.
Let's ground this in the real numbers from the report, because I think seeing the dollar amounts really helps. We talk percentages, but people pay bills in dollars. What does the average person actually get?
For an individual, the average increase is about $49 per month.
$49. That is a tank of gas, maybe, if you drive a really small car.
Exactly. For couples, it's between $75 and $80 a month combined.
And for those on SSI.
The maximums are now $967 for an individual and $4,450 for a couple. These are the hard ceilings. When you strip away the percentages and the headlines, this is the liquidity hitting the bank account.
It really highlights why budgeting is so important. You can't plan a vacation on a 2.5% raise if that raise is already earmarked for insurance premiums.
Precisely. You have to run your own personal audit. Don't assume you have more money until you subtract that Medicare premium.
However, it isn't all tightening belts. There is one section in this report that is genuinely good news. I would argue it's the headline of the decade for healthcare. We are talking about Medicare Part D.
This is huge. If we connect this to the bigger picture of retirement stability, this is the most valuable change of the entire year.
We are talking about the end of the donut hole.
The dreaded donut hole.
For listeners who haven't had the pleasure or the misfortune of falling into it, remind us what that was.
It was a coverage gap. You would start the year with your insurance paying for drugs. Then, once you and your plan spent a certain amount, the insurance would basically just stop. You'd fall into this hole where you had to pay a massive percentage of the cost yourself. Then, if you spent enough to get out of the hole, catastrophic coverage would kick in.
It was confusing, and it absolutely terrified people.
And it is gone. As of 2025, it is replaced with a hard cap. For the first time, out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs under Part D are capped at $2,000. period.
That is incredible. I mean, we have listeners who I'm sure have spent double or triple that in previous years just to stay on their heart medication or insulin.
Easily.
Yeah.
The report estimates that for people with high drug costs, so cancer treatments, immunological drugs, this change alone could save them upwards of $2,434 a year. That is real money back in your pocket. That's more than the COLA increase.
But, and there's always a but, with these government reports, the expert analysis warns that this isn't automatic, right? You can't just sit back and watch the savings roll in.
There is a strategy involved. You cannot just coast on your old plan. Think about it. The insurance companies are now on the hook for costs above $2,000. They aren't happy about that. They are going to restructure their plans to recover those costs elsewhere.
So a plan that was perfect for you in 2022 might be terrible in 2025.
It might be completely obsolete. They might raise premiums or, and this is the really sneaky part, they might change the formulary.
The list of covered drugs.
Exactly. They might bump your specific medication from a Tier 1 cheap drug to a Tier 3 expensive drug or drop it entirely to avoid paying for it. If you are in the wrong plan, that $2,000 cap won't help you if your drug isn't on the list.
So the action item here isn't just be happy about the cap, it's check your paperwork.
You must shop the market. Do not assume loyalty to an insurance plan pays off. It's an open market every year. You have to verify your specific drugs against the 2025 formularies.
That is such a critical point. Okay, let's shift gears from the medical bureaucracy to the financial bureaucracy. This is the stuff that keeps people up at night. The report discusses clawback reform.
This is the stuff of nightmares.
Clawback sounds aggressive. What are we talking about here?
It refers to overpayments.
Yeah.
Let's say the Social Security Administration made a clerical error 5 years ago. They paid you $100 extra a month that you weren't entitled to. You didn't know. You just cashed the checks. Suddenly, they catch the error.
And they send a letter demanding it all back.
They send a letter saying, you owe us $20,000. Pay us now. And in the past, if you couldn't pay, they could withhold 100% of your monthly check until the debt was cleared.
They could literally cut off your income.
Yes. Imagine relying on that check for rent and food, and it just stops. It was devastating.
But the report says that is changing.
It is. The report highlights the new 10% rule. It's a massive shift in humanity, really. Now, instead of taking your whole check, the SSA is limited to withholding just 10% of your monthly benefit to recoup the debt.
That is so much more manageable. It ensures you still have cash flow to eat.
Exactly. But here's the nuance, the deep dive detail. The report notes that this might not apply automatically to old repayment agreements.
So if you are already in the middle of paying something back,
the system might keep taking the old amount. It might not switch you to the 10% rule on its own.
Yeah.
You have to raise your hand.
You have to file for it.
You have to know your rights. You can request a waiver if the repayment is a hardship or a reconsideration if you think they did the math wrong. The key takeaway is, do not just accept the letter. You have tools to fight back.
Speaking of fighting back, or perhaps struggling against a current, let's talk about taxes. The report calls this section the stealth inflation of taxes. This part really caught my eye.
This is fascinating and so frustrating. We talked about the net zero COA, but this is the tax trap.
The report mentions that the income thresholds for taxing Social Security have been frozen.
Frozen in time. They were set 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
Think about what $25,000 bought you 30 years ago versus today. In the mid-90s, that was a decent chunk of change. Today, it's poverty line adjacent. The thresholds are $25,000 for singles and $32,000 for couples. If your combined income is higher than that, your benefits get taxed.
And combined income includes...
It's a tricky formula. It is your adjusted gross income plus any tax-free interest plus half of your Social Security benefits.
So as COLA increases the number on your Social Security check just to keep up with inflation,
it pushes that combined income number up. You cross the $25,000 or $32,000 threshold, not because you're richer, but purely because of inflation adjustments.
So you get a COLA increase to buy bread, but that increase pushes you into a tax bracket where the government takes a slice of the benefit back.
Exactly. That is the stealth inflation. Even though your real purchasing power hasn't gone up, the government treats you as if you are richer. It is a mechanism that slowly captures more and more middle-class retirees into the tax net.
It's like running on a treadmill where the ground is slowly rising up to hit you.
That's a very apt analogy. And because Congress hasn't indexed these numbers to inflation, it gets worse every single year.
Now, what about people who are still trying to outrun that treadmill by working? We have a lot of listeners who retire from their main career but pick up a part-time gig or consulting. The report discusses the earnings test.
This is critical if you are receiving benefits but are under your full retirement age, or FRA.
Which is 67 for most people now.
Right. If you take benefits early, say it's 62, and you keep working, there is a limit to how much you can earn before they start withholding your check. For 2025, that limit is $22,322.
$22,320. That isn't a high ceiling. What happens if you earn $22,322?
For every $2 you earn over that limit, they withhold $1 of your benefits. It's a steep penalty. It's a 50% clawback, effectively.
Does that money just vanish? Is it a tax on working?
No, and this is the critical detail the report really wants you to understand. Most people think it's a penalty, like a speeding ticket, but it's really a deferral.
Explain the difference.
That money is not lost forever. The SSA keeps track of every dollar they withheld because you worked. Once you hit your full retirement age, they recalculate your benefit. They take all that withheld money and use it to increase your monthly check for the rest of your life.
So it's forced savings, essentially.
In a way, yes. But if you need that cash flow now to pay bills, it hurts. So you need to be strategic. If you're going to work, you need to calculate if it is worth triggering the withholding.
This brings us to the final section of the report, which they call the protection protocol. It starts with a startling statistic. Scams targeting seniors are up 40%.
It's an epidemic. And it makes sense, right? We just spent the last chunk of time talking about how complex this system is.
Yeah.
Complexity is exactly where scammers thrive. They rely on you being confused.
They call pretending to be the SSA, claiming there's a problem with your COA or that you owe money under that clawback rule we talked about.
Exactly. They use the very terms we just discussed to scare you. They sound official because they use the jargon.
So what is the defense toolkit? What does the report recommend we do today?
First and foremost, set up your My Social Security account at ssa.gov immediately.
Why is that step one?
Think of it as planting your flag. If you claim that account, a scammer can't. But more importantly, it gives you a source of truth. If someone calls and says there is a problem with your check, you don't have to engage. You hang up, log in, and look. If the dashboard doesn't say there's a problem, there isn't a problem.
It removes the need to trust a stranger's voice.
Exactly. The second tool is for those dealing with high Medicare premiums. We talked about how expensive Part B is getting. But for high earners, there's a surcharge called IRMAA.
The income-related monthly adjustment amount.
A mouthful. Here's the trap. The government looks at your tax return from 2 years ago to decide what to charge you today. So for 2025 rates, they are looking at your 2023 income.
But 2023 might have been your last year of working. You might have had a high salary then, but now you are retired and making much less.
Exactly. You're being billed like a CEO when you were on a retiree budget. So the report highlights Form SSA 44. It's an appeal form. You file it to tell them, hey, my life changed, I retired, I divorced, my spouse died. If you have a life-changing event, they will recalculate your premiums based on your current reality, not your past history.
That one form could save someone thousands of dollars a year.
Easily.
What about picking a plan? We talked about checking the formulary for Part D. That sounds complicated. Who helps with that?
The report strongly recommends SHIP. That's the State Health Insurance Assistance Program.
Not an insurance broker.
No, brokers get commissions. SHIP counselors are government-funded, unbiased, and commission-free. They aren't trying to sell you a specific plan. They are just there to help you navigate the maze. They are the best-kept secret in retirement planning.
And finally, the phone number. We have to give it out.
1-800-772-1213. Tattoo it on your brain. If you get a call from any other number claiming to be Social Security, hang up. It is a scam. The SSA rarely calls you, they send mail. But if you need to call them, it is the only number to trust.
So let's wrap this up. The feeling I get from this report is that the system is a maze. Absolutely. It is designed to be dense. But it feels like today we have handed the listeners a map.
That is the goal. The report ends with that reminder we started with. You have contributed to this system for 40 years. It is your investment. You shouldn't accept default numbers or silence.
It's about ownership.
It is. Checking your Part D plan, setting up that online account, filing an appeal for an overpayment, these aren't just administrative tasks. These are acts of protecting your life's work.
It's about moving from being a passive recipient, just checking in the mailbox, to an active manager of your own benefits.
Exactly. Don't let the complexity scare you out of what you are owed.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, specifically regarding that tax discussion we had. If the tax thresholds, that $25,000 line, haven't moved in 30 years while the cost of everything else has skyrocketed, it really makes you wonder. How much of your benefit is actually just being cycled back into the system through taxes and rising premiums? And is it time we started calculating our retirement income strictly based on the net, ignoring the gross number entirely?
It is a sobering thought, but a necessary one. The gross number is vanity. The net number is sanity.
Thanks for diving in with us. We will see you on the next one.